She meant the world to me. I can't believe she's gone.
He was my knight in shining armor.
They were my one and only.
Are you facing the prospect of a holiday season alone? Did you recently lose a significant other, partner in life, lover? Here at Sinister Minutes, we don't think death should be an obstacle to continuing the best part of your life. Introducing our new Relove cloning service. Why take chances with dating apps, blind dates, or pitfall-laden office romances? Sinister Minutes' Relove service takes all the guesswork out of dating by providing you with an exact duplicate of your former lover. Our patented mental mapping techniques mean you can pick right up where you left off with no need to rebuild days, months, or even years of memories. We get it. In this economy, it's not easy to justify spending a significant chunk of your hard-earned paycheck, but for a fraction of what you'd spend monthly on frivolous dates that never go anywhere, you could have your former partner back. Relove offers several tiers to fit your budget, from our basic package with up to 70% accuracy on memories to deluxe packages with customizable affection and morality levels. All models come fully warranted to never ask how they died. And if you act now, you'll get 50% off a duplicate model. You know, in case whatever happened last time happens again.
Relove has kindled our entire relationship.
I sleep so much better knowing my knight is chained up in the dungeon where he belongs.
Thank you, Sinister Minutes.
Still grieving? Try a free consultation, because love deserves a second chance, even when it doesn't. Side effects may include clinginess, deja vu, or existential screaming. Do not expose Relove clones to their own graves or murder weapons. Sharp and/or blunt instruments should be placed out of reach of any Relove clone. In a small number of cases, Relove clones have retained memories of their own deaths and acted accordingly. Some Relove clones have been known to spontaneously explode without warning. Sinister Minutes Relove cloning processes are based on pseudoscientific principles and may therefore cause unexpected ruptures in the space-time continuum. If this occurs, please notify appropriate authorities immediately. Sinister Minutes features tales that include disturbing content. That's intentional because, like the podcast itself, the creators here at Sinister Minutes are really not okay. Now, having said that, realize that content featured on this podcast may include descriptions of some pretty horrific things at times. It is a dark fiction podcast, after all. So we hope that you are anticipating some degree of abuse and blood, of harm and death, of suicide, of sex, of injury, of mutilation, of pain, and certainly some profanity. Maybe a little bit of screaming, occasionally some threats, a bit of torture, a bit of victim blaming. And as always, at some point, we're sure that you're going to encounter some witches. Don't say we didn't warn you. Got a minute or two? We have a way to make it not okay. Welcome to Sinister Minutes. I'm your host, writer and storyteller Kurt Homan. Next to me is the master of macabre musical musings, the maestro of mood, Tim Parker. Together, let us take you on a journey into the dark heart of disturbing. Sinister Minutes. It's not okay. Welcome to Sinister Minutes Season 2, Episode 20. Today's story, Open Market, comes to us courtesy of guest author Brett R. Scott. Open Market brings the true meaning of the holiday season, building a stronger sense of community. In the strongest communities, each of us pitch in and do what's best for one another. Sometimes that requires a little sacrifice. Sometimes the sacrifice isn't so little. Anyway, Brett R. Scott workshops their stories on Reddit under the name Miss Mnemosyne. Once we wrap up our tale, it's time for Tim to take us down a dark, chill set of basement stairs and lock us away in a piece he calls The Box. Thanks, as always, for listening, for supporting what we're doing, for sharing Sinister Minutes with everybody you know. It's the holiday season. You see these people once a year, so what do you care about what they think of you? So go ahead, let them know you listen to us. Furthermore, the cheapest presents you can get anybody are the freebies. Am I right? And hitting the like icon wherever you listen to us and or subscribing won't cost you anything. But boy, it'll make us smile. Don't you want to make us smile? In the meantime, hit us up at sinisterminutes.com. Links to all the episodes, places to subscribe, stuff about us, and a submission form in case you've written a tale and want us to consider narrating it on the show. As Tim and I warily guard our ears against the sonic demons known as Mariah Carey and Johnny Mathis, it gladdens our hearts to see so many around us doing the same and letting the world know that we are all not okay. Open Market. Written by Brett R. Scott. Narrated by Kurt Homan. Jeremy Travis is about to wind his pulped corpse so far into a metal lathe that the shop management will, after a valiant but ultimately pointless effort at repair, have no choice but to sell it as scrap. Bits of Jeremy will go with the machine as it is sawn apart and melted down. Hair sucked into the axle will not be worth the trouble of removing, and a molar pressed into the sheet steel cover will be simply disregarded. In a final ironic sting, the puddled metal that contains trace amounts of shop foreman will be used to make signs about workplace safety. One will even end up back in Jeremy's old building, 6 feet to the left of where he could reliably be found every morning at 7 o'clock sharp, standing with a fresh cup of coffee and observing the shop floor. He has been known to be a bit of a hard-ass, Jeremy, and never a slacker when it comes to safety. At 28 years old, he is the sheet metal shop's youngest foreman ever. He doesn't mind the sharp stink of oxidizing aluminum that permeates the place, or the moldy chunks of drywall that lurk in the water jet tank. He helps Hugh, the Vietnamese employee, who has trouble with English letters and numbers, to read the packing slips and orders. But he fires Aiden the first time he sees him zipping along the shop floor on the pallet jack like a scooter. He is patient with men who want to work, and has no time for ones who want to horse around. He keeps loose clothes off the shop floor. When he barks at employees for taking smoke breaks too close to the tanks of liquid nitrogen and propane, he uses the same tone that his father did when preteen Jeremy had stumbled across his loaded deer rifle. The man could lead a safety seminar without a script. This makes his actions today that much more baffling. He has recently, for the first time in his life, allowed his hair to grow a little longer. When I saw him last, I told him that he was starting to look like a hippie, We both had a good laugh. No more buzz cuts for Mr. Shop Foreman, oh no. So when he leans forward to inspect a CNC lathe, that lovely brunette hair falls in front of his safety goggles a bit. He opens the door on the lathe unit, exposing the whirling machinery inside. He knows perfectly well not to do this, but cannot help himself. A fluorescent sign above him on the wall demands lockout, tag out. He has fired men for this exact mistake. He wants a closer look at the material hurtling at 127 RPMs, but does not want to shut down the machine and slow production times. This is the sort of thinking that gets men killed. Chips of metal material bounce off of his safety glasses and blue coolant splashes his skin. He leans in further, until his hair is brushing the material, then snatched by it, and then everything happens at once as he is pulled at speed into the lathe cabinet, and his body is crunched and stretched around it, no regard for bones or the structure they should suggest, his head slamming rhythmically on the coolant tank like a clothes dryer trying to handle a cinder block. Bang, 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 his joints coming apart and muscles migrating from their proper homes. Blood whips out of him and arcs far across the shop, centrifugal force given a perfect visual demonstration. If you could stretch Jeremy out, untangle him from the bloodied machinery, unspool him from this unintended centrifuge, he would be many feet taller and longer. It's all the extra wingspan hidden in intact joints and bones. Flesh stretches much more easily. With his skull crushed like a collapsed and rotten jack-o'-lantern, still intact but rather more narrow and tall, he has technically gained another 3 inches in height. I attend the funeral, of course. I've known Jeremy since he was big enough to visit my front porch on Halloween. His mother and I have organized bake sales for the elementary school for a decade. I still remember when he toddled up to my front door, dressed as a pumpkin, and happily took one of my caramels. He was only 3 then. I know because he was thrilled to tell me. His mother tried to be polite and make him say thank you, which he absent-mindedly did, and then returned to his description of his favorite cartoon. We spent a good 5 minutes chatting. Several times throughout the years, he mistook me in the grocery store for his grandma, a little old lady who lived 30 minutes away in Harlow. She died last year, too, shortly after Bill drove out that way to deliver a new book of crosswords and a bag of her favorite strawberry candies. You know, the ones we old folks always have, but you can't find in the store? I speak to Jeremy's mother, and then his young widow. I keep things brief. There's no need for them to deal with an old lady's prattling when they're mourning. I tell the pretty, pregnant Julianne that I'm sorry to see Jeremy go. I tell her that she is always welcome in my home and in the neighborhood. I also explain that since the home she rents belongs to the neighborhood trust, I have spoken to the board members, myself and 4 other old-timers who live in the cul-de-sac, and we have decided that Julianne can go ahead and just forget about paying rent for a few years, maybe more. I refuse her tearful thanks and say that today is Jeremy's day. We just don't want her to have one more thing to worry over. On the way out, I collect Brittany Conley. She's my ride. I haven't driven in a very long time. We've watched over this community for decades. Admittedly, it's a bit selfish. When you get to our age, there's not a lot to do. We live for the town celebrations, the big Memorial Day parade where Pete gets out his army jeep and tosses sweets to the crowd, the first day of school where we all volunteer to hand out free backpacks pre-packed with a nutritious lunch, and of course, the big one, Halloween. We pull out all the stops for Halloween. The cul-de-sac glows, lit up like a carnival for just one evening. Silly wooden skeletons direct kids and their watchful parents toward porches decorated with yarn spiderwebs. Nothing too scary, of course. We want this to be a fun memory for the kids. We want them to come back next year, wondering what zany decorations Grandma Joyce has cooked up. Even when they're teenagers and they're a bit too cool for trick-or-treating, they stop by to say hello to us. Mary Beth sneaks them cans of light beer to drink in the graveyard later. We stay popular with the kids. For the parents, the whole setup is nice too. They watch from the refuge of warm minivans as their rugrats get to stuff their trick-or-treat bags with some of Mary Beth's chocolate strawberries or Pete's popcorn balls. Our town has a problem with car accident fatalities. Here in the cul-de-sac, parents can rest assured. You never know who's out on the roads on Halloween, but the cul-de-sac is only accessible if Pete opens the gate for you. So here, they can relax. The decor is all handmade. We take a lot of pride in that fact. Everything the kids see tonight was made, not store-bought. It matters. It makes for better trades. Bill builds scarecrows from bales of straw, wire, and thrift store clothes. Sometimes he decides to get a little goofy with it. One year we had a scarecrow dressed as Thriller-era Michael Jackson, a reference the kids didn't get, but their parents took photos with. The ghosts that dangle from the big maple and blow on the breeze were once just hangers and white sheets. My house gets gussied up every year as Grandma Joyce's swamp hut, complete with flickering torches and burbling cauldrons of mystery potions. Food coloring and dry ice goes a long way. I like to dress up like a witch with green skin and a pointy hat. That's not what witches actually look like, but that's fine. The kids love it. I tell them little stories about children being eaten by creepy old ladies in questionable cul-de-sacs, and that lady's scary neighbors, the wolfman, the devil, the vampire, and the mummy. And hey, would you just look at that, children? All of the cul-de-sac neighbors are dressed up as just those things. I give an evil witch cackle as little hands raid the bucket of caramels I've made from scratch, and the kids giggle and scream and scatter. It's all in good fun. Mary Beth always tries and fails to keep her silly graveyard from turning into a raucous playground. Bribes of candy usually get the kids to move along. The parents always thank us for putting on such a big hullabaloo, and we remind them to come visit any time. If we are to heal from our town's tragedies, we have to come together as neighbors and friends, share in those sorrows, those hideous days when people are pulled into machinery or thrown through windshields. We do it all over delightful mint tea that I'm all too happy to serve. But even with the stagecraft and hijinks, it's really all about that heady first knock on the door, wrapped with little knuckles. Showtime! We perk up and wait a few seconds, giving the entirely false impression that we haven't been eagerly waiting in the foyer, plopped into a chair and reading a favorite old book, The door swings open onto that gaggle of little spooks, and we gush about the big, strong Spider-Mans and the tall, swathed ballerinas. We are sure to talk to each child in turn so that they know we see them and that they are important. They take their candy, and with a chorus of thank yous, they scamper to the next house around the circle. Another transaction complete, another trade solidified. For this kind of deal, you don't need a wet ink signature. We don't really do contracts. Our business is older than that, older than law. Stories about us exist in cuneiform, but not on papyrus. Fired clay just lasts longer. Leaving a paper trail wouldn't make sense anyway. We taught man how to barter long before he figured out how to write it down. We still like to do business in our circles. Toadstools then and now, a ring of Cape Cod cottage homes with brick facades and an HOA. The trick is that you don't necessarily need to know you're making a deal to make one. We weave the offer in vague words that sound like a pleasant invitation. It's always a question. Won't you sit down and have a muffin? It's awfully warm out today. Maybe you'd like a soda. Even Pete's parade banner, sponsored by the local family-run furniture store. Want a sweet deal? Shop at Fortner's Fine Furnishings. See how that works? The first part is just a question. Open, intentionally nonspecific. When you pick up the hard candy Pete throws overhand by the fistful, you agree to that very sweet deal. And Pete gets to tack another little while onto his already millennia-spanning lifetime. A root beer lozenge for a month of your life might sound like a somewhat unfair exchange, but you do keep accepting our offers. You only get so many years. Once your time is up, it's up, and you die. That's how freak dog attacks kill pedestrians. How promising young ladies manage to get hit by trains at clearly marked crossings. How safety-conscious foremen end up inside of lathes. Jeremy visited my house every year until he was 14, sometimes even taking a second caramel when I offered. He made some very generous deals. I took 28 of his best years. Bill landed at least another 15. Halloween is our busiest time of year, of course, especially with the veils being so thin, but we're busy little bees on most holidays, and we do like to squeeze in a few nasty tricks every few weekends or so. Brittany Conley is my personal project as of late. She's not a bad young lady, just one from a lacking home, and she needs so very much guidance. We take tea together every other weekend. I'm her Grandma Joyce, and I help her draw up cover letters for scholarship applications. Would you like my advice, dear? And encourage her to pursue a degree in English literature. When she is 26 years old, Brittany will find herself sprinkling a cardboard box of powder over her scrambled eggs, a container that she will believe is table salt, but which is clearly labeled with a skull and bones. The acrid taste will not put her off. She will finish the entire meal in a daze and find herself suddenly drowsy, slouching back into bed where she will lie unconscious, and the contents of the box will burn a ragged and soggy hole through her, out the small of her back, and allow the steaming acids to sizzle through the mattress and scorch the hardwood floor. She will not awaken throughout the process. That would be cruel. There have been 100 Britneys before her, back when they had names like Moira or Fiat. My first deal was with a lovely young woman on the moor, a chieftain's daughter. This was long before we bothered to blend in. I must have been quite a sight, antlers on proud display and blue will-o'-the-wisps dancing through the mist that rolled across my bare skin, my crown of thunder clouds low on my brow. We enjoyed our showmanship then as much as we do now. I didn't have any treats to offer. It didn't matter. She was happy to trade for the answers to her inane questions about love. I didn't know the truth to any of it. Did not even know the man whose name she pronounced with doe-eyed adoration. But I could make up an easy line of bullshit. She would live to nearly 40 before having her brains kicked out of her by an especially skittish horse, a beast who also did not know her lover's name, but threw him to his death anyway. She stepped behind it, something she knew perfectly well not to do after a lifetime in the saddle, and gave it a sharp slap across the rump. The horse kicked, then bucked, and Loverboy came crashing down on top of her. Broken spine for him, dead before he knew what happened. I should have weaseled a few days out of him, too, but I was new to the job, and we do actually need your name. It's the only hard and fast rule. If you're not happy with your trade, you can always complain to management. It's happened a few times, once even successfully. The man that can ride a bellowing and fearless warhorse across a bridge of sunlight cast on the waves at the day's end is likely to impress the boss. Her island hosts the gilded tree by which the supplicant must not be tempted, its garnet bright fruit glistening in the late sun. He must face her without flinching, without turning away when she throws the voice of his dead and swindled wife behind him. Even then, Morgan generally sticks to her no refunds policy. Would you like a word of advice? Don't try to find us, and don't worry too much about whether your neighbor might be one of us. They probably aren't. And even if they are, you aren't going to catch them with that silly count the fingers and count the teeth nonsense. We figured that out about the same time we put away the antlers. Most likely, you won't even miss the time we borrow from you. And do try to remember that we don't cause death. We just reschedule it. The Box, composed and performed by Tim Parker. Sinister Minutes is presented by Kurt Homan and Tim Parker. The musical score was composed and performed by Tim Parker. Our production team consists of Kurt Homan and Tim Parker. On behalf of everyone here at the Sinister Minutes podcast, namely Kurt Homan and Tim Parker, we thank you for listening, for joining us as we explore all the ways in which we are not okay. This audio program is copyright by Kurt Homan and Tim Parker under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.